Visiting the Great Pyramids of Giza was an absolute thrill. Look at this. I explored iconic sites,
Don't slip.
uncovered fascinating history. I experienced a surprise I didn't expect, seeing dogs running halfway up the pyramids, and I took some pretty standout pictures as well. In this video, I want to share with you the best advice to get the most out of your visit, especially if you're like me and only had a few hours. My number one top tip is start with a guide. It is worth every penny. My private tour, which included transportation, cost approximately $140. And quite frankly, I think it was worth even more than that because there was so much specificity from the guide when it came to ancient Egyptian culture, architecture, and fascinating secrets of the pyramids. Stay tuned for specifics. Hey there friends, I'm Errol Barnett. I am a broadcast journalist with more than 20 years experience reporting all over the US and around the world. These days you can catch me daily at 7 a.m. streaming on CBS News, but some of you may recognize me from my time as host of CNN's Inside Africa. I had the privilege of exploring fascinating places all across the continent, from Madagascar to Morocco, Senegal to South Africa. In just 2 years, in fact, I visited 22 African countries. I met inspiring people. It truly broadened my perspective and changed my life. I hope to share more of those experiences in videos to come. Now, we never actually made it to the pyramids, mostly because we were focused on uncovering aspects of the continent people did not know about. So I'm excited to share with you my personal experience for the first time visiting Giza. Let's dive right in. My adventure began with an 8 a.m. pickup arranged by my hotel and then a 1-hour drive to the outskirts of Cairo. And as soon as we got close to the pyramids, we hit traffic. So that brings me to my next piece of advice. Get there early. The pyramids open at 7 a.m. during warmer months and 8 a.m. in cooler seasons. And if you're visiting during peak season, which I did during November, you can absolutely bet on a crunch of people at the entrance. So as we crept toward the ticket booth, I caught my first glimpse of the Great Pyramid, and it was massive, just surreal and breathtaking to see for the first time. My guide had the great idea to jump out of the car we were in and walk up to the ticket booth to avoid some of the traffic. That's where I shot this.
So this is the entrance to the Great Pyramids of Giza. Of course, the pyramid is the point, but as you might imagine, the tourists, the traffic is very apparent. This is November, so it's moving into the high season of tourism for Cairo because it's cooler, so that's when all the tourists get here. And it's Friday. The weekends here are Friday and Saturday. So for those reasons, perhaps it's also busy, as you might expect on any day.
The entrance fee for foreigners is about $14 for adults and $7 for students, but be aware this doesn't cover entry inside any of the structures. And I only had a few hours to spare, so I didn't jump for those interior tickets. These prices are based on the current exchange rate, but you should be aware that Egypt has been gradually increasing the prices over the past few years. So to get the most recent information, head to the Great Pyramids website, which is egyptmonuments.gov.eg. Plenty of useful information right there. With that out of the way, we finally entered. When you first step onto the grounds, the sheer size of the Great Pyramid of Khufu overwhelms you. Khufu is the pharaoh who built the first and largest pyramid. It was the tallest man-made structure on Earth for 3,800 years, and it was originally covered in white limestone with a gold capstone. Today, what you see is its granite core, and trust me, even this video footage doesn't do it justice. Walking onto the pyramid is a must.
The entire pyramid was covered with this type of special white stone. It's amazing. The crowds. The crowds. This is pretty cool.
Standing on these 2.5-ton limestone blocks, each the weight of a small elephant, really helps you grasp the scale of this engineering marvel. Now you can pay extra, as I mentioned earlier, to enter the pyramid, but I decided to skip it. There are no hieroglyphics that you can see, there's no art, it's cramped, it's hot, so if you're claustrophobic, I would skip this, but if you're into that kind of thing and it's not a barrier, I would say go for it. There's a descending and ascending passageway, a grand gallery, the Queen's Chamber, and the King's Chamber. And even as I walked away from that entrance, you get this incredible panoramic view of Cairo, and it just strikes you how this monument from thousands of years ago is sitting right next to a thriving and bustling megacity. And if you're good with maps, take a look at this. When you walk away from that entrance, continue to move west and stand here at the northwest corner. It's a great spot for a photo like this. Make sure to get your hands up and smile. And if you continue west, you'll arrive at an area known as the Western Cemetery. This is where nobles and high-ranking officials were buried. And for me, it was my first time laying my eyes on original hieroglyphics in Giza. These carvings are 4,000 years old, and they depict the pyramid's construction process. It's really incredible to think that these records survived for millennia. And as you can tell, they're in relatively good condition. This depicts the workers and supervisors carrying the building blocks of the pyramids via boats. And if you look closely, you can see that it shows blocks of different sizes. My guide said, how can people think that aliens built the pyramids when ancient Egyptians effectively documented everything? And here's a journalist's trick. Make an audio recording of your guide's stories for personal use. You see, these guides pack in so much useful information, it is impossible to absorb everything. And even re-listening to some of those recordings in making this video, it struck me that the guide mentioned that the pyramids line up perfectly with the cardinal directions, that this set the foundation for modern engineering, and even the mummification process helped us in the modern day develop preservation techniques. Then as we turned from the Western Cemetery, I experienced a surprise I didn't expect. Seeing dogs running halfway up the pyramids, having the zoomies. Dogs have always been companions in Egypt. They've been depicted in ancient art and mythology, a nod to Anubis, the jackal-headed god of death. So it was a joy for me to see them running carefree way up there on an ancient monument. Now, no trip to Giza is complete without seeing the Great Sphinx. This is an iconic must-see. It's thought to represent the pharaoh Khafre. It depicts his face on the body of a lion, and it stands as the silent guardian of the plateau. Now, the pro tip for you here is to either visit late or visit early because the crowds can get dense. Make sure you get right down to the parking lot so you can snap this perfect shot. You can also tour inside for an additional fee when you get your original ticket. Now I want to show you the place you need to go to snap an iconic image where you can see not just all three Great Pyramids, but also some of the smaller ones as well. I've shown you Khufu's pyramid, but Khafre's pyramid is more iconic, specifically because of its limestone cap. It still retains some of its original shape, but it's not actually taller, it just sits higher on the plateau. The smallest pyramid is that of Menkaure, Khafre's son. The three smaller pyramids next to that were built by him for his family. So in order to get a cool shot where you can see all of them in one image, you'll want to drive west away from the Great Pyramid to this location. As soon as you get there, throw your arms out and let your guide move the camera to position you in the right place, and they should tell you just slightly how to adjust your hands. Giza. Pyramids are amazing. And it might sound easy, but that was not the first attempt. In fact, why don't I show you the first video clip I received after we did all that and then drove away.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So yeah, basically my guide, as great as he is, double punched my phone and the record button. So I said, wait a minute, we gotta go back. We didn't actually record the epic picture. And there was still more to see, but I'll be frank with you, by now my energy levels were draining. I can get overwhelmed when there are large crowds of people around, and on the drive to the exit, you do see people with camels and horses that you can pay another fee for to ride if you like. And one aspect of all of this that just kept jumping out at me is that even to this day, we don't know much about ancient Egypt, and that's despite their incredible record keeping. This is a live, working archaeological site, and they are constantly making new discoveries about how they all lived here thousands of years ago. Consider the Rosetta Stone, for example. It was discovered 224 years ago, and that's why we're still learning more about what life was really like way back then. Other things are being discovered in tombs and monuments all across Egypt. And there is a real push to have the British Museum, where the Rosetta Stone currently sits, to return it to Egypt where it originated. And that's common actually when you look back at the colonial picture and so many places on the African continent that want their possessions back. I'm curious what you think of that. Post your thoughts in the comments and let me know. Of course, I've only scratched the surface of this experience, but I wanted to give you the highlights and give you some useful information so that when you make it to this place, you can make the most. I encourage you to explore even more outside the Giza Plateau. My guide took me to a type of official government museum, they said, where we got to purchase some things on papyrus, right? This is the old Egyptian method of record keeping. I couldn't help myself, okay? There's also a new Egyptian museum that just opened. I would highly encourage you to see that as well. And if you enjoyed this, stay tuned for some other videos. I'll show you the ancient stone ruins of Zimbabwe and even the Star Wars sets in the desert of Tunisia. My camera roll is full of these things. And I didn't mention to you that I was actually in Cairo to moderate a high-level discussion for the United Nations on sustainable housing. So if public speaking is the kind of thing that just makes you fall to pieces and really nervous, I'm going to share with you some of my best advice in how you can absolutely overcome those fears. All of that will be in my next video.